Well, it's that time again. Time for a top 10 list. And while I didn't review a lot of these movies, I still am very excited to share with you what my favorite movies of last year was, 2019. It's worth saying these are my favorite movies. These are not necessarily the best movies of 2019, although some of these, the two lists do come together at some point. And also, I didn't see every movie of last year. I still haven't seen The Irishman. I still haven't seen Ford v Ferrari, which I've heard amazing things, and I will see them hopefully before the Oscars come out. But in the meantime, I'm just going to go with the movies that I saw. So let's get into it, starting with the honorable mentions. They are How to Train Your Dragon, The Hidden World, Glass, Toy Story 4, The Lighthouse, Shadow, and Rocketman. All movies that you should absolutely see if you haven't seen them yet. They just didn't quite make the list. But now let's get into that list. And starting with number 10. Booksmart is Olivia Wilde's directorial debut, and if she keeps putting out movies as good as this one, I will be there, because this is a funny movie with some great characters. It's got a lot of relatable humor. I mean, I remember watching it with my friends, just picking out points of the movie where we're like, we've said stuff like that, and we've done things like that, and obviously the movie is exaggerated on a lot of parts, but that's just a comedy. This movie wasn't even on my radar at the beginning of the year, and I'm so glad that from word of mouth I was enticed to see it, because it's just a great comedy. Once Upon a Time in Hollywood is different from a lot of other of Tarantino's movies, because in there they're very plot driven, they're very they've got a full narrative through line. In this movie, it's just kind of a day in the life of these two characters, and with also involving the Manson murders, and I think that Tarantino handles that very well. His style is all over this movie, but in a way that is, again, different from his other ones. It's not my favorite Tarantino movie, but that doesn't mean it's any less of a great movie. It's one where the first time I watched it, I didn't fully appreciate a lot of the different elements to the movie that he was putting in, but watching it again, I absolutely loved it. And Tarantino has yet again another really great movie under his belt. Parasite's one that I unfortunately didn't get to see in theaters. I ended up watching it just actually a few days ago, and I'm still processing it. I think that if I rewatch it, it might even go higher on the list, but it's definitely deserving to be on the list. It's got a whole bunch of different genres, but they blend together so well. In some scenes you're laughing, in other scenes you're like on the edge of your seat. The imagery and the cinematography are just fantastic. There's some great layers that you think it's going one way, and then it changes direction, and then it changes direction again, and it's one where you might not have seen it because it's an international film, it's from Korea, but it's absolutely worth seeing. And also, the storytelling and directing on display is some of the best of the year. The John Wick movies have progressively gotten bigger in budget, but they've never lost their sense of action. They always include these wide shots and these one takes, and on this level I feel like John Wick 3 took everything that the first one did and raised the stakes and raised the levels, and while it might not have as good of a motivation as the first one, it had enough of a motivation for me to be behind everything that was going on. And like I said, some of the action scenes are just insane and also super inspiring for someone that would be interested in doing action later on. Keanu Reeves, he's just a likable actor, and also Halle Berry in this movie is incredible, has one of the best fight scenes in the entire film. If you're interested in action movies, this should be like top of the list. I feel like there hasn't been a really great Whodunit movie in a long time, at least in recent years. I mean, there was Murder on the Orient Express, but that was okay. But Rian Johnson brings his flair to the the murder mystery genre and knocks it out of the park. Because this is a murder mystery that's told in a different way, and that's really all I want to say, because I don't want to spoil it. And everyone in the cast just seems to be having a blast with it, which reminded me so much of Clue, but it never once felt like it was copying things that Clue did. Rian Johnson's directing style is all over it. He is clearly a very good writer and a very good director. You might not like what he did for The Last Jedi, but put that aside, because if you're interested in murder mysteries, this is one of the best. If you had asked me after seeing Us, I was pretty sure that this movie was going to be in my top 3 films of the year, because it's just that good. And that, it's not even that it's just good, it stays on your mind for a while. After seeing the movie, I wanted to rush out and see it again. Not only is Jordan Peele very good at telling a message in a way that doesn't feel like he's holding the hand of the viewer, but he also puts in so many different symbolisms and imagery and parts of his film that inspired him from other films, that you really can't get all of it from just watching it one time. You have to see it again, and I commend the movie for that. It's really inspiring, his filmmaking, and to see just the love that he has for these stories. I'm so excited to see what he's going to do next. I will be there on whatever horror movie he's going to do, because he's already proven himself with just 2 movies that he's a really good director. And Lupita Nyong'o should get an Oscar for her role in Us. Avengers Endgame. You knew it was going to be on this list. I'm a huge superhero fan. And to just see 10 years of Marvel storytelling all coming together in a way that felt satisfying, where there was fan service, but fan service that serviced the story just as much as the fans, because there are some other movies that came out this year where I felt like the fan service was really there for the cheap thrills and the cheap, hey, I know that. While in this movie, it never felt like that. It just felt like, hey, we're going to tell a story, and we're going to make sure that the fans are happy, but also we're never going to compromise our own story for that. And to see the characters, there's some amazing action, some of the best superhero action that I've ever seen. It has moments in there where my heart was racing so much just from excitement that I actually was a bit worried for a second. It's my favorite movie-going experience that I've ever had, and probably will ever have for at least a long time. The Russo brothers should be commended for their work, from Winter Soldier to here. But really everyone involved, Kevin Feige, all of the actors who were involved in these movies, all of the writers, because I really just think they did a great job of staying true to the characters that they've set up for all of these years. Now we get to what is probably the most controversial movie on my list, and it's not even controversial because now that it's out, a lot of people really like it, but going into the movie, there were people that wanted to hate the movie before they even saw it. And I don't want to get into the what the controversy was and the different sides, but in my opinion, you have every right to hate a movie and talk about it and do all that stuff, but you at least gotta give the movie a chance, because something that works on, or that you read on paper, might sound really stupid, but the execution might be great, and vice versa. But it's also worth seeing for Joaquin Phoenix's performance. My guess is, at this point, you're probably tired of hearing about how great it is, but he just adds so many layers to the character, just from little things that he does, as well as Todd Phillips, who's the director. He really makes the world, or the city of Gotham, be its own character in the way it evolves throughout the film. Joker also seems to go above the superhero genre, at least what we've seen in the movies. I know comic books have different iterations of characters and tones all the time, but from someone who mainly watches the movies, a lot of comic book films stay within a certain genre, and I'm happy that movies like this, even if you didn't like the movie, I think we can agree that it's at least good that they're willing to make a superhero movie or a comic book movie that is pushes the limits a bit on storytelling and themes that are brought up, and I hope to see more variety in the superhero genre going forward. I was very worried when I was going into 1917 because I heard that it is made to look like all in one take. And usually that would be something that I'm very excited about because it's a different way of filmmaking, and that's something that would inspire me. But I was a little bit worried that it would come off as a gimmick or it'd be distracting, and 5 minutes into the movie, all those fears went out the window. because it is so well crafted and clearly so well planned out. Just see the whole movie just follow these two characters who, by the way, are given some character development, because another fear was that they were just going to be blank slates, but they're really not. They're really there to have a character and for someone for you to get behind and root for. I got so emotionally invested in this film, which is not something that I expected to be into it, but by the end, I was cheering for the characters mentally. I saw it in the theaters, and I was on the edge of my seat for a lot of the film. It's one where you should see on the biggest screen possible, because it's also just gorgeous looking. The sound design is incredible. It's on a technical level, it is a masterpiece, and on a story level too, it will keep you invested the full way through. And finally, we get to my favorite film of the year. This is a film directed by Taika Waititi. He tackles the subject of World War II and the Nazis and Nazi propaganda in a way that never felt like he was doing it just to do it. He always had a message there. He always had a point to his film.
Out of all the movies that I watched this year, this is one that I
got the most invested in, with the characters and the story and how he played out, where there's some moments where you're laughing and other moments where you're about ready to cry. Also, you never know what you're going to get when you have a child actor on screen, and here
it's the main character, and I just bought everything that he was playing into.
I never once felt like it was just an actor on screen. I believed all of it. And I think it's pretty obvious by now what movie I'm talking about. My favorite movie of the year is
Godzilla King of the Monsters is the greatest film of the century. As a huge movie fan, this film made me feel all warm and tingly from the moment I sat in the theater. I could not contain my excitement when Godzilla ripped King Ghidorah's head off. I'm pretty sure he did it twice. Anyone who thinks this film isn't as good as it actually is an idiot. This film deserves every Oscar nomination, and the only reason the Academy didn't nominate it for an Oscar is because of the fact that it would win every single category. This film is everything I wanted it to be and more, because of what it stands for.
Jojo Rabbit.